It's a country famous for its cigars, but the communist state of Cuba is looking to breathe new life into its ailing economy. 500,000 public servant jobs are to be axed in the next 6 months, in what's being seen as a clear signal that Cuba wants to open up its economy and encourage private investment. Australia has already taken some tentative steps to establish relations as lobbying intensifies in the United States to end the crippling embargo. Michael Troy reports.
1950 American classic cars are a common sight on the streets of Cuba. But it's certainly not happy days for the Cuban economy, which is thought to be in the worst shape it's been for decades. One of the reasons is that the state controls 95% of the economy. But last week the government announced 500,000 public servants would go in the next 6 months.
In the long run, I think it's going to be a positive step because it basically signals to foreign investors that Cuba can run its economy in an efficient way.
Dr. Adrian Hearn from Sydney University has been studying Cuba for many years and believes the transition to a modern economy is already underway, and he doesn't believe the sackings will bring about instability.
Cuban authorities say that in taking this step, they're also going to create jobs in the private sector for people. And this is something that's been going on for, well, a number of years, but especially in the last month or two. There have been real steps to allow greater protagonism from small entrepreneurs. And the vision is that many of these people will be sort of relocated into those types of jobs.
The most likely model Cuba will follow is China's, following a visit to Beijing by the new president.
When Raúl Castro visited China, he went there specifically to look at urban reform, privatization, industrial reform in the sense that we see it happening over the last couple of weeks. And absolutely, I think, Cuba wants Chinese investment, and China wants to invest in Cuba.
The United States embargo has crippled Cuba economically since 1962, but now the pressure will be on to end that, especially with the ailing 84-year-old Fidel Castro ceding the presidency to his brother Raúl. Late last year, Australia's first official visit by a foreign minister in 15 years was noted as a fresh start to the relationship between the two countries. The then Foreign Minister Stephen Smith signed a memorandum of understanding which he said would provide the future basis for cooperation between Australia's Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade and Cuba's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Also discussed was the potential for collaboration between Australia and Cuba in science and technology. Moving away from its traditional exports of sugar and cigars, Cuba is already setting up a manufacturing base for items such as refrigerators, televisions and even cars.
There's change underway in Cuba in terms of what it's producing and manufacturing at the moment. And really the word manufacturing is indicative of that change, because now what you see is, electronics manufacturing beginning to take place.
Travel restrictions imposed by the United States have already been partly lifted, and with Cuba signalling its intent to change its economy, it may not be long till all trade barriers come down too.